for our government and for the youth, especially as it's Workers' Day. I'm going to split it into two, specifically for government. Government needs to, yes, there's opportunities for people with disabilities, but they need to ensure that they allow more high management positions for people with disabilities. So rather let people with disabilities have the opportunity to make decisions on our own behalf. Don't have an able-bodied person make a decision on our behalf. And when it comes to the youth, they need to be, as people, we need to be the change that we want to see. So yes, it's good that we look for employment and we look for jobs, but also as the youth, we need to start our own businesses. We need to be able to be self-motivated enough to be able to pursue our dreams.
What a truly inspiring story, reminding us about the resilience of the human spirit. And with that, we want to say hello, Dumelang, Sanbonani, South Africa. Welcome to Expressions here on SABC 1. If you don't know this by now, Expressions is definitely the place for you to air your views. I'm your host, Jacqueline Mapala.
Your host. Now, welcome to another episode of your #1 youth current affairs show. Ngeshwa, we're not live today. Do get in touch with us through our social media platforms. Jack is going to go Facebook and go Twitter. Now, this evening we spotlight the challenges faced by people with disabilities. Jack is in the workplace. Are the rights of people with disabilities respected in the workplace?
Nico, that's a very important question, especially because the 1st of May is observed as Workers' Day in South Africa. It is a national public holiday that serves to pay homage to the working class of the nation. It also celebrates the role played by trade unions, the Communist Party, as well as other labor movements in the struggle against apartheid. Even though we have made great strides, people with disabilities continue to encounter major challenges in the workplace.
Jackie, and widespread ignorance, fear and stereotypes cause abantu with disabilities to be unfairly discriminated against. Now, as a result, they experience high unemployment levels and often remain in low status jobs and earn lower than average remuneration. See, Expressions again, we took to the streets to find out if the workplace is conducive enough for young people with disabilities. Akisbon.
Hi, I'm Kagiso and I'm your street journal for today. So today we at the VUT and then we're discussing about disability since we're nearing Workers' Day. Can you tell me what can we do, what more can we do in order for us to be able to support disabled people nearing Workers' Day?
Instead of siba vele kufuneka ukuthi siba understand sibabone ukuthi nabo ngebantu, so if stokona kuba understander than ukuthi siba vele or pity them, it's gonna be easy for them ukuthi babe welcome to us and like associate with us more better.
Do you think South Africa in general is doing enough to support disabled people?
Well, I would say yes, because firstly there are athletes, right, that are disabled, and most of them actually are known everywhere. So I would say yes.
Maybe bangasifundisa ukuthi sikhona kubatreat kanjani abantu abadisabled. It can make a change.
I think the most that I've seen is the lifts, as far as people with wheelchairs are concerned. As for blind people, I haven't really seen anything. Yeah, it's basically that I've seen.
So those were some of the comments from young people on the streets. But to help me take this discussion further, I'm joined in studio by Emily Oliphant, an entrepreneur, as well as the founder of Emily Oliphant Foundation. I'm also joined as well by Dr. Paul Chappell, who is the researcher for the Wits Center for Diversity Studies. Welcome to Expressions,
Thank you.
lady and gentlemen.
Thank you.
And if you're wondering what's happened to my co-host Mkolisi, he is on our social media corner, bringing some of your perspectives and insight on this also important conversation that we're having in studio that's happening a little bit later. But we're going to get straight into it. Emily, maybe let me start with you. As we observe and we commemorate Workers' Day, do you feel that there is enough done for workers who have disabilities in our society?
I think in general, the Constitution is great support in terms of informing people about disability and so forth. But there's still a lot to be done, in our communities for people to remove the stereotypes and discrimination. And I think in most cases, it's because people don't interact enough with people with disabilities, or there are really barriers that people with disabilities experience that hinder them from actually being part of the community. Hence, for example, you would find less people go out with disabilities, less people go out in your malls, in your communities, and are very, visible in a community because, number one, we have barriers in terms of transportations and so forth. So there's a lot of things that, that kind of doesn't make it easier for people with disabilities to be part of the community.
And I think the next question is, what needs to change? What needs to happen to be able to create a space, a world where people with disabilities feel like they're accommodated and they feel like opportunities that arrive in South Africa are accessible to them? Paul?
I think there still needs to be a lot of change. I mean, as Emily has said, there's a lot of legislation and policy that's in place, but it's the actual implementation of this policy that seems to be a big issue. And I think what needs to come, needs to come from the employers themselves. They need to be willing to see the benefits of actually having a person with a disability employed in their organization. And I think also it's not just about the physical barriers, but the attitudes of people. I mean, I think the more visibility of people with disabilities in the workplace, I think people really start to see the positive benefits of having people with disabilities employed.
And I think for you, Emily, what are your lived experiences around being able to find a job as someone living, at least someone with disability?
Well, in my case, I had an injury. So I was not born with a disability. I had my injury when I was still in the workforce. And I think what worked for me at that time, and perhaps I consider myself privileged at the time, to be able to go back to the workplace. And I found that the employer at the time was willing to listen to what needed to be put in place for me to get back to the workplace, because unless we have reasonable accommodation for persons with disabilities in the workplace, we're not going to be able to be effective in a workplace. And what I found that, and in fact, I lasted 10 years with the organization because I couldn't feel like I couldn't do anything because everything was in place in the workplace. And then I was headhunted for another position in another organization. And what I found there was that reasonable accommodation was not in place. Now, the reason why most of us don't actually job hop is because we don't know if we're going to have accommodation in that office space, you know what I mean? And it's very critical that employers bear in mind that as much as everybody needs development plans for their staff, it's very critical to have that for people with disabilities in a workplace so that the improvement and the progress is monitored just as that of people who don't have disabilities, you know what I mean?
And unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it here. Maybe you are a young person living with a disability and you're wondering, is this world catered and designed to accommodate you? Well, we're going to answer that question a little bit later. Umgo is on the flip side of this. You're watching Expressions. We'll be back after this.
You're still watching Expressions, your #1 youth current affairs show. We're talking about disability in the workplace. We're not live this evening, but of course our social media platforms remain open to you. Siyabuza, are the working rights of people with disabilities respected in the workplace? I'm joined by Lloyd, a young man who wears many hats. Good evening and welcome to Expressions. Nazo. Great to have you on the show, man.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. So we've heard ngale ama panelists abantu abasha actually do face some challenges when they step into the workplace. Mhlambe mongasithatha usibeke esithombeni about some of the challenges that you faced.
For me, the biggest challenge was starting to work. Because I went straight from high school and being in boarding school.
Yeah.
So, you know, spending most of the time at hostel and that. And now you're finished with matric, now you have to start hustling. And then getting a job at SABC. I live in Alex, it would mean milling 30 takes from Alex to town, from town to Auckland Park. That is where I realized there's many challenges, especially when it comes to public transport. Because people do not consider Ogoti Manselainin, for example. Simple example, Ogoti, there are certain seats in a taxi that I'm unable to sit at due to my disability. And then so a person would not consider okay, sharp, why not and let me sit there? That was the first challenge that. And for me, it was something new because, I mean, fresh out of school, I'm thinking I'm going to be working for GIT and growing, you know. So that is what motivated me to actually start looking at life in a different perspective. But now you come to work and then you learn, Ogoti, there's an employer that actually cares about a person with a disability. The building is disability friendly. The employees, they don't treat you different just because Ohama crutches or Ohama wheelchair. And now you, although motivation outside, and then you come inside and you're like, you're right.
Yeah,
you know?
they were right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, Lloyd usebenza khona la ekhaya SABC and mina la sinokuhlangana mos nase 15 out nje uGrand Sharp awufuna abantu bakutreat special and what. Ufuna ukwazi though, what do you think needs to be done for abantu abangekho as lucky as you to be part of your organization that embraces ama disability? You
know, as a person, you need to be the change that you want to see. So you need to be able to voice out needs and because yes, we all work for different employers and there's different policies. But now, for the factor Yoguti, within different companies, they don't always have a person with a disability in high management that would actually think for the rights of people with disabilities. That is where Tina, we need to voice out our needs and be able to go to the highest management and say, Ugoti, as a person with a disability, these are my needs. This is what I need. Because even when you look at reasonable accommodation, it's not the same for each and every disability. And if you have an able-bodied person sitting at the decision-making level, that person would think, Ugoti, a person on a wheelchair and a person on crutches, to them, reasonable accommodation would be on the same level. But it's not the same. But now, if you have people with different disabilities, we are able to discuss it and say, what is the middle point that we can all have common ground
so
on?
Clearly, a lot still needs to be done. In fact, we always want to hear what you think. That's why we also catch up with your WhatsApp voice note for this weekend.
Hi, Expressions. A lot of workplaces do have the necessary equipment for people with disabilities. Though it was a foreign concept at first and only people who used wheelchairs were catered for, but as the years progressed, a lot of workplaces catered for a lot of disabilities, including the likes of deaf people, people with autism, and so forth. We still have a long way to go, but it has progressed.
Okay, at the back of that voice note, Lloyd in, I just want to know from Emily. Emily, now reading your book, when we were your life changed in an instant. Do you think ama workplaces are actually willing to go, you know, meet you halfway, that suddenly, you know, got a disability?
Most organizations are familiar with reasonable accommodation of persons with disabilities and what needs to be done. It's mostly the attitude. It really depends on getting the buy-in from top management down, because we have transformation forums in organizations, but we can do so much. If management does not embrace the change we need to see in the workplace, we're going to struggle until we're going to talk and do what we can do as best we can until Pete comes, and he's never going to come. So it's very critical that we get top management buy-in And then our HR, our transformation consultants can get that assistance to embrace and implement reasonable accommodation.
Lloyd, now Budwami, when I ukhuluma confidence, ufuna ukwazi ukuthi how do you gain a confidence we workspace mosafika nje a person with a disability? Take me through briefly some of your challenges.
Some of my challenges, you know, it's very hard because I used to be an introvert because as Usis Emil, also I was not formally born with the disability, but it's something that came due to medical procedures. But now, as a person and as you go into different environments, your mindset, it is what will determine how you go with confidence. Because now if you get to work and when yourself, you feel sorry for yourself and you feel, I can't go there, I can't do that, automatically, your aura, it will rub off on your colleagues, and now they will automatically start treating you that way.
So, motivational speaker, DJ, not
DJ, and the whole point of being a DJ, it's about teaching people about disability. Because now there's always that thing with DJ is able-bodied. But now if you're able to get to a club, jive and have fun, and realize the person that made me dance had a disability. That shows you I'm as capable as you. Already, normal social nabangan bako, you're able to say, do you know what people with disabilities are able to do that? So I indirectly taught you something new.
And we shouldn't even be making it an issue. I guess you know, social media, well, Umamosa says not at all. It's even as if they have forgotten that such people even exist. Smelani Lindani says, I don't think so, but I do appreciate the efforts some put in because some places have toilets specifically for them. We should just keep on as if there's still more work to be done, echoing the sentiments of our studio guests. And one last one from Sipati says, I believe that it depends on who they work for. For that, I mean the organization. For example, the organization and the environment and corporate culture respects, supports and protects staff with disabilities, then the rest of the staff shouldn't have a problem. For those comments there. This all-important discussion continues on the other side. Now, this is Expressions.
Welcome back. You are still watching Expressions, your #1 current affairs show here on SABC. And we are talking about a very critical issue, and we're talking about people with disabilities and obviously the experiences in the workspace. And the question that we're asking you tonight is, are the working rights of people with disabilities respected in the workplace? I'm still with Paul and Emily, and obviously we have to wrap this up. You know, there were key points that were raised around the lack of education, the lack of awareness, but there's something that you're doing to address that. I mean, you have a Highball web series. Tell us a little bit about that series, that electronic resource you have.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jackie. At the Center for Diversity Studies at FITS, we are launching a really exciting web series called Highball. And the idea of Highball is basically to get the nation talking about issues around diversity. So we'll be challenging and issues around transphobia, homophobia, racism, but also, which is important to us, is the issue of ableism. And we have a show which will be launched that people need to watch out on the 15th of July on the YouTube and other social media platforms, where we will be focusing specifically on the issue of disability at work. So I'd say to people, watch out and start engaging with the YouTube videos.
Because it's 15 July, and it's called Highball.
Yes, but it's actually launching on Friday. The first one launches on Friday, the 27th, and there's going to be another series happening over the public holidays coming up.
Excellent, excellent. And I think, Emily, just to wrap things up, what role do you feel that people with disabilities can play in changing some of the mindsets that able-bodied people have?
Firstly, nobody owes anybody anything. Just because we have reasonable accommodation and the policies and everything doesn't mean that you're entitled to. But we need to be responsible to change people's mindset about disability. So I teach you how to treat me. Must go a long way, because as much as we have all this reasonable accommodation in the workplace, if you don't know how to interact with me, you're not going to be, if I don't teach you or put you in my shoes, you're not going to be able to know how to embrace me. So we need to play our role as much as the employer needs to play their role. And when two of us are together in working towards reasonable accommodation, both of us will be fully accommodated.
Wow, thank you. So it really is about all of us working together.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming to the show,
Only a
Emily.
pleasure.
Paul, thank
Thank
you.
you.
This was absolutely insightful. I
I'm
mean,
informed,
completely
Jackie.
blown away, right?
And of course, at the back of that, Mundomusha, we always want to know what you'd like for us to discuss. That's why we check in with your video diary.
Hi Expressions, my name is Jabulani Makubo, and I would like to find out if the newly launched campaign Yes going to be a solution to the unemployed youth of South Africa. Thank you.
Okay, let's have a look at some of our poll results. Well, 90% Jackie think no and 10% think yes. So clearly there's still a lot of work
that needs to be done. But I hope from the viewer at home, we were able to give them some hope and inspiration to say that if we can do something. There is something that you can do to change your circumstances, right?
Kumbulage now, Lepakaya, to keep those video diaries coming on the topics you'd like for us to discuss. Yo, I'm so excited today. My personal favorite, Umpo Me, is playing us off. Good night and take care.
Thank you so much. Bye.